Savvy Business Radio, drawing out the best from our guests with our host, Christina Nichman.
Our guest today is John Horst, Cybersecurity Engineer with over 20 years experience helping civilian and military leaders succeed with secure, cutting-edge information technology. John has an unmatched grasp of how local problems span multiple levels of government. John shares his journey to politics and running for Congress. Find out more about John and support his campaign at johnhorstforcongress.com. Hi, John. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio, to our Heartbeat of the World segment. How are you today?
I'm very good, Christina. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. We were introduced to each other by our wonderful friend Joshua, and he told me you're doing some wonderful work out there. You are working to join the Congress of California's 52nd Congressional District, and you come as a Republican, bringing some great things to California, trying to help them and make the world and California a better place. And I'm very grateful you're working, because a lot of people they talk out of their mouth. They want to do things to the country, make things better, but you're actually putting your words behind your actions and going out there to do something about it. So I'm very grateful. But before we go into a deep subject of some of the issues facing the country in California, talk to the audience a little bit about your background. What led you to politics?
Well, I was led into politics, sort of fell into it when something very, very local and ordinary but unfortunate happened. 20-year-old young woman was walking her 9-year-old niece to school, and they were hit by a car at an intersection in our neighborhood. And it was one of those intersections when you live in a neighborhood, you're thinking, something bad is going to happen in this intersection someday. And that day came, and I began to talk to our city council and our local leaders here about getting a 4-way stop sign at that intersection and a crosswalk. It was right in front of a school. Wow. And it was, the housing complex was actually a military housing complex for the Marine Corps. I live only a couple of miles from Marine Corps Air Station Miramar. And so Marine Corps families live across the street from the school, and there was no crosswalk, no 4-way stop sign. And so I began to get involved in solving that problem. Became aware of a group. We have 52 of them in San Diego. We call them community planning groups. And these are elected groups, but the elections are very, very local and somewhat informal. And so that group helped me get the crosswalk and the stop signs installed. We got it done within 6 months, and a lot of people were quite surprised that we actually got it done that quickly.
Wow.
And I learned how decisions were made in the community. And I'm like, I want to be part of this. I ran for a seat. I was elected, became the secretary of the group. We are limited to 2 4-year terms. I served a second term of 4 years, the last 3 of which I was the chairman of the group. And I recently was termed out. And so I served 8 years on our planning group.
Wow.
And during that time, we would talk about a school that was supposed to be built in our community. And the money had been raised in 1998. Now, I was elected to this group in 2009, and the site is still completely empty. So imagine that. The money's in the bank in 98. And nothing has happened, and it's already 2009.
Why?
And that was my question. And I learned that U.S. Fish and Wildlife, federal bureaucracy, kept moving the goalposts on our school district. Every time the school district felt they had complied with the permit requirements, U.S. Fish and Wildlife tacked new things on. And so I started asking I started asking my friends on the board and the folks at San Diego School District, has anybody gone to our congressman's staff? Because, this is high school civics here. That's what they're there for. And I was shocked to find out that no one had even thought of that.
Wow. So
I went to our congressman. His name was Brian Bilbray at the time. I went to his staff, began to build relationships with him. In 2011, he was running for re-election. He was at our local street fair. Again, one of these really hyper-local sort of things that happens in communities across the country. our chairwoman at the time, I was the secretary, we saw him walking down the street. We pull him aside and we show him the design for the school, and we explained everything that was going on. He looks at his staff and he says, I want to know everything about this project and I want to visit the site.
Okay.
Now, this project was to be Jonas Salk Elementary School.
Okay.
Dr. Peter Salk, Jonas Salk's son, works out here in San Diego. And to make a long story short, we were able to introduce our congressman to Dr. Peter Salk at the site. Our congressman went to Washington. They held hearings in Washington, and he wrote a bill, and we got the bill didn't become law. The bill was designed to basically tell the bureaucracy, get with the program. Long story short, Christina, this academic year is the third year Dr. Jonas Salk Elementary School is teaching our kids in Mira Mesa.
Woo! Awesome.
It started with me. It started with me saying, has anybody talked to our congressman? It started with me going and building relationships with his staff, and we got a school built. And when Brian lost the seat in 2012, and we had the groundbreaking, and that was when I began to think about running for Congress, because I saw what we can get done when you have what you need from your congressman and you have community groups who are engaged and active.
Yeah. Wow. This is so encouraging to me and will lead to our talk going forward that people, I've talked to people, even here in New York, that's where I'm living, and they'll say, I don't need to go vote in the local elections. Voting doesn't really help. It doesn't matter if we vote. We don't really have a voice. I'm like, well, if you think that, of course we don't, because you've given your voice away. The sad thing is, and what this illustrates your story, is that we actually do have a voice, but we have to engage ourselves. And when people say on voting day, oh, I did my civic duty, I went and voted. It's not your civic duty, it's your privilege. You are granted the wonderful privilege to go and vote for your representatives that are representing you. That is an awesome privilege that not all countries have, and we should take advantage of and not forfeit. And so I love your story showing people that there can be change if we work together and engage and become advocates and really work in action together. And also what your story also illustrates is that there was a need you saw in your community, and you stepped up and did something about it and realized, hey, there's a place for me to go to make change. And I think that's what happens with business owners all over the place. They see a problem and I have the solution for it, whether it be a product, service, or information.
Yeah. And, there's a term in philosophy called the tragedy of the commons. The tragedy of the commons is basically this. When something is broken, but nobody owns it, fixing it is always someone else's job.
Yeah.
Think about that for a minute. When something's broken and no one owns it, fixing it is always somebody else's job, and it never gets fixed. And so it's a matter of taking ownership over what's going on in your community. It's a matter of, if you see the grass is greener on the other side, you can pine to move, or you can get to work.
Yeah.
Get to work greening your side, making your community a better place to live. And that's, I don't know, that's just how I'm wired.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad that you stepped up, and I'm hoping your story and your sharing will inspire others around the country, wherever they're listening to us, to really go out there and see what are the issues in your community and what can I do to start making things better. Now, from your perspective, you're in California, but you see the entire United States, and you've seen how a good portion of citizens have become polarized about sometimes silly things that they're fighting about, like your mama, and it's like, okay, dude, we're all in the same country here. What is your perspective on what are like some of the greatest challenges facing the entire country right now?
Well, right now, not to put too fine a point on it, the social contract that we have with each other is frankly in shambles. It's in tatters. Yeah. And this began in earnest in the financial crisis 10 years ago.
Really? Wow.
That's frankly, well, I think it begins even earlier than that. But I don't think that the American people are still quite angry about the financial crisis. They're still quite angry about banking institutions that took immensely risky, foolish bets, and then they were bailed out. I don't. When this happened, I saw my parents' retirement account completely get decimated.
Wow.
And that was what really woke me up, and what it pushed me into a place where I stopped believing things that I was hearing, and I started doing my own research and my own writing. And I'll give you an example, Christina, and you're in finance and business finance and accounts receivable.
Yes. They
told us that they needed to bail out the banks or we'll have a second Great Depression.
Yes.
It was complete nonsense.
It was.
In business, the most important line of credit to a functioning economy is the short-term credit that businesses use to make payroll. You've managed receivables, and you know that receivables are usually net 90 or net 30 days.
Yes.
And then many age into 60 and 90 and 120. Well, if you're in business, you have a payable. It's called payroll.
Yep.
And it's a net 15-day payable. You have to pay your people every 2 weeks or every 15th and 31st. So if you're getting paid every 30 days, but you have to pay your employees every 15 days, what do? A lot of businesses depend on short-term credit.
Yep.
And when you have a banking crisis, the shortest term credit facilities are the first to seize up. So you end up having to let your people go.
Yeah.
The Federal Reserve could have backstopped emergency payroll credit facilities, and businesses could have kept their people employed. And the banks that had played fast and loose could have been let go, and it would have been disruptive and difficult, but we would have gotten through it.
Yeah.
But that's not what we did. And I think that when you look at what's happening today with Donald Trump as president, and I'll be honest with you, I voted for him.
Me too.
And I am going to go to Congress, and for the most part, I think there are a few things I'm going to have some questions about, but I'm going to go there to support him. But the tweeting and the crassness and the boorishness, it's a symptom of what has happened to our social contract.
Really? Huh. Tell me your perspective on that. Tell me.
He's not the problem. His crashness and his boorishness are a symptom. This is the American people saying to the establishment, if you want to know what we think you look like, here's Donald Trump. He is a mirror. Spend 8 years looking at yourself in the mirror now.
Wow. Yeah. I'm just feeling for, what you're saying there. My first choice and I've never seen myself as a Republican or Democrat, to be honest. I had put myself on the independent for years. And just before Donald was nominated into the Republic arena, I was actually before that looking and hoping that Ben Carson would get the nomination, because I think he's amazing. When he had that wonderful talk in front of Obama, telling him the problems and being honest with him and fearless. I was like, okay, I want this guy as president. And then when he was running, I was like, yay! But as it went on and Donald J. Trump was running, I was like, you know what? He's speaking about what all the people are feeling. We're sick and tired of being trashed. And when you're talking about the receivables end of it, I've been consulting in receivables for over 25 years. And I've seen after 2008 businesses that were very strong and had a lot to offer the world just crumbling. And in essence, were let out of work in a lot of places because they couldn't afford to keep me, even to consult and help their books, because things were just crumbling. And so I could see the frustration of the entire country. And whereas people say, oh, it's crass, no president should talk like that. Really, what we're hearing is what we're thinking. And he's actually just saying it out loud. So in our head, we're like cheering, going, yeah, keep going. So I completely see what you're saying.
Christina, there really are three economies. There is the political economy of Washington. That economy is $20 trillion in debt, and it's a black hole of waste, fraud, and abuse.
Yes.
Then you have the speculative economy of Wall Street. We have, I think Warren Buffett called derivatives financial weapons of mass destruction. We have financial products in Wall Street that are competing for capital, and they're competing against Main Street businesses like you were talking about that have a lot to offer. Every dollar on the blackjack table in Wall Street, that's not a dollar. going into a new business. Or the example I like to use here in San Diego is our craft beer scene is absolutely spectacular. All of these new craft beers that are coming online, you could be investing in a craft brewery who's actually making things that people want, or you can be over here playing blackjack with all of these fancy speculative financial products. So you have the political economy, the speculative economy, and then Main Street. Main Street is where wealth is created. Wealth is created when people take the raw materials of the earth and turn them into useful things or things that people want, things that people will buy. The farmer grows a crop of coffee, and the potter takes clay and forms a coffee mug, and now the barista has a job.
And I have coffee.
Me too. That is how wealth is created. That is how our economy used to work. The craft brewer, the brewmaster, takes grains and hops and water and all kinds of other interesting, ingredients. And he brews a beer. And now all of a sudden you have these tasting rooms popping up all over the community, and they're creating hundreds and hundreds of jobs, and millions of dollars of wealth are being created. Wall Street is supposed to come alongside the wealth creator and bring capital to the wealth creator so they can expand the creation of wealth. Wall Street does not create wealth. They bring capital to the wealth creator. Washington does not create wealth. Wealth is created on Main Street, and Main Street right now is last in line for the money supply. And that's why you see otherwise really great businesses struggling.
Yes.
Washington is first in line, and it needs to be last in line.
Yeah, we need to change things up. And it's amazing to me, because I've said this on my show before in different business segments as well as the political current events segment, that really we have so much power as the people of the United States in our pocketbooks. I have now really taken great effort, as you were saying, to really shop with the small businesses, not to go to Starbucks or even Dunkin' Donuts most of the time or other big chains, Barnes & Noble or whatever, and really shop at these small mom and pops, because they're the bread and butter of the United States. And we want to support our neighbors who are putting out wonderful products that we get to enjoy.
Absolutely.
And when I say to them, what power do we have when XYZ happens? We have the power of our pocketbook. We stop giving them money. They stop profiting. They have to change the way they do things, and they do things on behalf of the people. So it really does. We really are a lot more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. Now, I want to go back to talking about the social deconstruction of our country that you mentioned earlier. I see on Facebook and a lot of social media, it's a mirror to how we're feeling discontent and polarized to each other. Has anything played a part besides maybe, Donald being President Donald J. Trump being a mirror? Has anything played a part to the way we've been so vicious towards each other on social media?
I think that's a function of anonymity. I don't take that very seriously, to be quite honest with you, and I don't think people should take it too seriously. Let me give you an example from being a dad of two boys.
Okay.
And my boys had cell phones, right? And when I was growing up, we didn't have cell phones. We would say things to each other. And I was joking around with my oldest son about this. My dad might not let me go somewhere. And so I would tell my friend, oh, my dad's such a jerk. And those words would fall out of our mouth, and it would fall to the ground, and no one would hear them outside of the conversation we were having. Now, our kids are doing the same thing but they're texting it now. And there it is for everyone to see forever.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And think about that for a minute. It looks different when it is set online. It looks and feels different when you read it because it's there and it's there forever. But we're saying some of the same things that we say we used to say quasi tongue in cheek with each other before social media existed, and it never went anywhere. It just looks different in electronic format, and I don't really take it all that seriously. And I don't think people should.
Wow. Yeah.
It's just a new way of having the same conversations that we've had, for millennia. And it just looks different because it's always there.
I love that you say that. I never heard this perspective, but you're right. We shouldn't take it seriously. And I was mentioning to you before the interview that one of the reasons we started this segment was people were coming on our show just prior to the election last year and saying your mama and complaining and saying my viewpoint is right and my candidate's perfect. And just, I was like, whoa, can we get back to our show, please? And so I was like, whoa, this is really interesting that people have such a strong, what they think is a belief on where they stand, but most people, including myself, didn't think much about politics before last year's election at all. And so I thought we have to have a real conversation here. Screaming and hollering at each other, mostly on Facebook and text and all that stuff, is not solving anything. Let's just come to the table and have a real discussion on what's really important to each other and what can we do to start fixing things. And really, when we all come to the table, all of us want the same thing. But what I like that you mentioned a little bit ago is that there's that anonymity that we feel safe to kind of be explosive on social media somehow and just put our what we feel is our viewpoints. And you're right, we shouldn't take it seriously. Go. Mm-hmm.
There's another side of this that we have to open our eyes and see. I call them grievance merchants. This goes back to 1971 when Saul Alinsky wrote the book Rules for Radicals. And it's really become the Democratic Progressive Playbook. And what they do is they herd us into these narrow ideological corners. They don't look at politics as a way of reconciling different perspectives and ideas and values, which is what it used to be. They look at politics as a tool to herd us into these narrow corners, and then they train us to try and out-ridicule the other side on social media.
Wow.
And then once they have us trained on out-ridiculing each other on social media, then we get hit up with the fundraising letters. And once you get that fundraising letter, then you know what this is really about. This is about monetizing our grievances. And Christina, both sides are doing this.
Yeah.
On the left, it's gender grievances and economic grievances and racial grievances. On the right, I don't know if you've heard the term makers and takers.
No.
Makers and takers was something that people on the right, they tried to split the electorate into makers and takers. And it's a grievance meme. It's just a grievance meme, just like what the left is doing. And what they're trying to do is monetize our grievances. The First Amendment, the last words of the First Amendment guarantee us the right to petition government for the redress of grievances.
Okay.
Politics is supposed to be how we do that. It is supposed to be how we come together as a community and reconcile competing priorities and ideas and seek redress for grievance. It's not supposed to be how we let people monetize our grievances.
Wow.
And to be brutally frank with you, this is on us.
Yes.
We need to realize what has been done. They've herded us into these corners. We need to basically step away from the grievance merchants.
Yes.
Go out and have a beer with each other.
Yes.
And out here in San Diego, we got a lot of good beer for that.
Come on down.
Yeah. Go out and have a beer with each other and start rebuilding our politics from the ground up, from the basis that we have our founding fathers laid for us. And that is the redress of grievance, not the monetization of grievance. And
yes.
And we can do it. Christine, I'm very, very excited because I look at the national political scene and I see an old guard and I see a new guard. The old guard are the John McCains and the Lindsey Grahams. These are the people that I listened to before the financial crisis. And the financial crisis sort of shook me out of my stupor and really made me question this neoconservative philosophy they have.
Yeah.
The new guard is Rand Paul, more of a libertarian, freedom, principles of liberty.
Yes.
Donald Trump is a very important transitional personality in a changing of the guard. So everyone's worried about Donald Trump. I'm telling people, look, Mr. Trump is president. He's probably going to win the election in 2020. I hope he does. He's going to be president for 8 years, and then he's going to go into retirement. What's next? Let's start talking about what's next so we can rebuild our politics from the ground up around principles of liberty. I look at Rand Paul and I see the new guard. And that's why I want to go to Congress. I want to go to Congress now so that I can participate in a rebuilding of our politics from the ground up.
This is so inspiring to me. I'm so glad you're saying this, John, because a lot of people I talk to feel this kind of, I don't have much of a say. And this is the most exciting time of our lives in this country. We're going through, I'm feeling just as you, this major shift that could be an amazing shift if we now take this opportunity to move forward together, not separately. And that's one of the reasons we created this segment, to really get people to think about my neighbor's not evil because he thinks a little bit more differently than I do. Right. Let's peel back the layers of, as you say, the little meme that we've been told one way or the other to think, and peel back the layers and realize that we all want the same things. We want to be healthy, love, have shelter, food, family. We all want the same things. It's just maybe we have a different way to go about it, but we can get there. I just love that you shared this conversation with us. Let everyone know where they can find out more about you. If they are in San Diego and they want to participate and help you get into office, how can they do that?
It's www.johnhorst4congress.com. And then on Facebook, just John Horst for Congress, facebook.com/John Horst for Congress. Christine, I'll tell you, the hardest part is fundraising. Anybody can give. They don't have to live here. If you're a U.S. person, U.S. citizen, or a permanent resident, you can donate. The maximum donation per person is $2,700. Now, there are some who can do that, very few though. I'm hoping for smaller $25, $50, $250 donations from a lot of different people. I'm going to get into this ring. I'm going to fight this fight. I'm going to take hits from both sides. I'm just hoping that there are people who listen to your show that will be willing to, let their voice be heard with a $25 donation or a $250 donation, however that works. If you go to johnhorstforcongress.com or John Horst for Congress on Facebook, there are hyperlinks to an online donation page. And you can read about my positions and, the issues that I'm passionate about. I'm a cybersecurity engineer. I think we've sent enough doctors and lawyers to Congress. We need to start sending people who know something about technology.
Yeah.
And you can read about my background, and you've heard my story about helping get the school built. I'm running to do that kind of work for my community and to otherwise nationally help us rebuild our politics from the ground up, and make it back to what it's supposed to be, the means by which we seek redress for grievance, not monetizing grievances and hurting people in the narrow corners.
That's right. Because together, as complete citizens of the entire United States, we can make it a great country where we're together and not separate. And I'm so grateful you were able to share your wisdom today and your stories and your gifts. Thank you so much for coming to Savvy Business Radio and our Heartbeat of the World segment.
Savvy Business Radio broadcasts worldwide via a large podcast network, celebrating business owners, entrepreneurs, influencers, and successful individuals. Find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest. Call 732-474-7375 or email Christina@savvybusinessradio.com.